Thank you so much for being here for the last session of ETH Prague. My name is Yuting. I am the founder of Agora Citizen Network. It is an open source deliberation tool that helps communities to map disagreement and find consensus on complex and potentially divisive topics. In other words, we try to build solutions to help communities to coordinate ourselves better in an age with accelerating technologies and growing fragmentation. So I want to begin with a simple claim that the hardest problem in the world is not intelligence, it is coordination. From climate change to pandemic to AI governance, I think many of our challenges, they are not due to a lack of ideas. These are coordination failures. Someone from Anthropic joked that even with AGI, it would still be impossible to get 6 people in a room to agree. And I think that joke points to something real, that even with a shared vision, even with powerful intelligence, we still can't automatically just come to shared decisions. So the question is, how do we go from shared attention to shared decisions? And this is the shift that I want to be talking about today, from broadcasting to broad listening. So historically, broadcasting has been one of the most powerful ways to coordinate. From newspapers to radio to television, broadcasting, it has been weaponized in the past and is highly controlled for a reason. Social media platforms, they changed the game and allowed many more people to speak up. And many grassroots movements wouldn't have happened without them. However, a lot of these social media platforms, no matter if it's Twitter or TikTok, they follow the logic of influencers and followers, which is essentially still broadcasting. So what I'm really excited about is broad listening. It's a concept that allows us to hear from the millions instead of hearing from the loudest. And there are 2 types of broad listening tools that we have today. One is active listening tools, which invite active participation from people. The other type is passive listening tools, where we just analyze existing discourse, no matter if they're from existing forums or listening to in-person conversation, for example. So there are pros and cons and some trade-offs. Ideally, we should combine both to ensure high quality and a good quantity of data as well. A famous example of broad listening was in Taiwan, where the government invited 4,000 people to participate in an open consultation using Polis and how do we regulate Uber, basically. So they invited citizens, taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and government officials, and so on, to deliberate together on this platform. And the results of the deliberation was eventually turned into legislation. And last year, the city of Tokyo also leveraged broad listening in formulating their 2020 strategy. So very inspired and learning from a lot of these initiatives, my co-founder and I started building Agora, which was originally founded by Horizon Europe. The concept is very simple. On Agora, users can create or participate in conversations by clicking agree, disagree, or unsure on each other's opinions. They can also submit their own opinions. And then we are using machine learning to group participants based on how they vote. So this step is purely deterministic, which means that it doesn't depend on what language people use. It's just based on patterns of agreement and disagreement. And then, the reason why we do this first is to have reproducible and auditable outcomes of the opinion mapping. And then after that, we use the LLM to give short labels and summaries to these groups to help people make better sense of them. And what's really interesting about this approach is that we are moving from majority vote to consensus across differences. Because a lot of the times, what's most interesting is not majority opinion. It is the bridging statement. It's the statement that multiple groups share, even between a small minority group and a large majority group, although they may disagree on a lot of other things. And then once we identify these consensus points, we can invite people to prioritize them, to express how much they agree on this list of proposals in a step where we call plural voting. We take into account the demographic data and also opinion group data to build collusion resistance. And this step is important to have a shared ranked list of priorities that are immediately actionable for a group. And Agora is based on decentralized identifiers, DID, so it is fully compatible with the zero-knowledge proofs. And for now, we are compatible with the ZooPass and ZK Passport, developed by our remote team behind the Freedom tool. So this allows people to prove their citizenship, age group, and etc. anonymously without sharing any personal details. And Agora is also fully open source. And to make this a little bit more concrete, we are currently working with a group of facilitators and sociologists to carry out a local development project in the south of France. And in this consultation, the sociologists are carrying out qualitative interviews with the representative stakeholders who are farmers, union representatives, civil servants, and so on, to identify some points of tension to understand the dynamics between water use and water management. And then the insight from these interviews will be used to seed an open consultation on Agora, and that will scale to many more stakeholders. So this is just one example of a broad listening process. We could very well imagine mixing a lot of different other steps and tools. For example, we could have an in-person local assembly where we also use a passive listening tool to listen to what's happening and to synthesize these insights. And the reason why I say that is because I think how we design a process is as important, if not more important, than the tools themselves. And this is also the reason why we launched a DDS initiative to build a decentralized deliberation standard that will enable an ecosystem of interoperable collective intelligence tools. No matter if they are dialogue tools, voting solutions, or decentralized social apps, or even prediction markets. And using these tools, communities, institutions, DAOs, network states, and even companies, they can use this interoperable data and verifiable data to make better collective decisions. And this is also why I think this conversation belongs at ETH Prague, where we are actively trying to make sense of the realities which are plural and to build better futures. So I want to just end the lightning talk with the last message that we don't just predict the future, we co-create it. Thank you so much for this.